YouTube Ozzico in the Goat House is back. Today we're ranking every single NFL offensive line from worst to first, 32-1 for the 2022 season. So in this video, I actually had to go through and project the starting offensive lines for each team, and then I kind of compared them all together and came up with these rankings. There's some rankings, and they're my rankings, and there's some rankings that kind of surprised me. I didn't think I'd have that team that low or that high. So I'm excited to break all this down because it's sort of a projections and rankings video at the same time. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Follow us on Twitter, live news, rumors, updates, live talk during live games, even the preseason games. More tonight, of course. Like, subscribe to notifications on because we got full NFL coverage here. Cannot wait for our in-season content. Hopefully you can join us. Here's our Twitter. Super followers this is a link. It shows the Cardinals, but it's a link to all the graphics to all of my projected starting offensive lines. Super followers on Twitter got that. If you click that super follow button, you get bonus content, involvement in videos, leagues, and more. A lot of people signing up. 23 already. Appreciate you very much. So let's rank these offensive lines for 2022. And unfortunately, the Seahawks come in at number 32, and it's a work in progress here. I mean, Charles Cross, a good pick. He's got a little bit work to do as a rookie, mainly in terms of run blocking. But Damian Lewis looked a little better a couple years ago compared to last year. Gabe Jackson maybe on the decline, but a solid guard overall. Center's really no guarantee, but it looks like Blythe right now. It's a spot they can get better. And the right tackle could be Lucas, the rookie. Right now it looks like Curhan. So it's I mean potentially the guard duo could be all right. Cross is going to be good for the future, but I got them at 32 for this year. That's a tough part too, because you might not have the best quarterback in there either, but they have weapons throughout their team on offense and defense, so they could be sneaky. But and I put these in tiers too, kind of groups. So they're 32nd and they're in tier 5. For me, the Bears are ranked 31st and they're also in tier 5. If the Bears didn't make some pickups, like mainly Riley Reef, I know Schofield projected to be a starter because he's better than what they had. It's a minor pickup there, but Reef has struggled, but last year he looked pretty solid at right tackle for the Bengals before he got injured, so you would think he would play there because he looked much better there than left tackle. Some people still think he could play left tackle, but yeah, if they didn't pick up Reef, we might be seeing the Bears at 32, so they jumped up one spot, pretty close with number 30 as well. It's kind of back and forth. I think number 30 is going to have more chemistry, perhaps, was the difference. But yeah, Reef could play left tackle. It's he's listed as right now. It makes sense. Left tackle's a battle. If you had talked to me a few weeks ago, I probably would have told you it'd been Larry Borum. Now it sure sounds like it could be the rookie Braxton Jones, which I love that pick. I was very high on Braxton Jones, but he's a raw prospect. He's got the traits. That's why you take him. He's got the length, athleticism, size that you look for, but there could be some growing pains and kind of getting used to going from Southern Utah competition to NFL competition, but he is the starter heading into preseason right now. So it's his job to lose, it feels like right now, and I like his upside, so maybe he keeps that. But it's weird not seeing Borum or Jenkins, the last year's draft picks, neither of them starting, but Borum could, whether it's tackle or guard. Really the only spot that I feel all right about with the Bears offensive line is Cody Whitehair, who is solid. And Reef could be solid as well. Got to stay healthy. Which Reef we're going to get. But the Bears might have been 32 if they didn't pick up Reef there. So overall, him and Schofield, a solid addition. 30 is going to be the Steelers, which, doesn't look too strong on paper. And the Steelers coaching staff usually does a pretty good job of making them play better than what they look like on paper, but doesn't really change a whole lot here. But hoping some guys take that next step. Guys like Dan Moore, Kevin Dotson, and Mason Cole's kind of been a career backup. James Daniels was a great pickup from the Bears. We just talked about the Bears. I thought that was a great pickup. And having him in there definitely helps them from being last as well. But maybe they kind of get some chemistry going compared to last year. We will see. 29 to me, the Raiders, which did not expect myself to rank the Raiders this low, but once you sit there, you project the starters and compare all of them, you look at the Raiders like, yeah, the offensive line's not what it used to be, really. Colton Miller's fantastic, but after that, it's kind of a bunch of question marks. And the center right now is supposed to be Andre James. I'm projecting Dylan Parham, the rookie from Memphis, to take that spot. New coaching staff, they like what I've seen from him. He played a little bit of center. He's listed as guard/center. He's played a little bit of center in that Hall of Fame game. Looked pretty solid. So thinking he kind of takes that job, but keep in mind it could be Andre James. Leatherwood struggled last year, should fit this scheme under Josh McDaniels a little better. Still could struggle. Lester Cotton's not really a big name guy. John Simpson, kind of waiting for him to take that next step. So I think coaching probably on paper that might actually look worse than 29, but I think having Colton Miller, big time player, and coaching that scheme probably helps it from being at the very bottom, but it's still another tier 5 offensive line. We're not used to seeing the Raiders down here, but it is a new year. 28 going to go with the Falcons. What's holding up the Falcons is they got 2 studs in Jake Matthews at left tackle and Chris Lindstrom at right guard. Those are 2 studs, even though Matthews may be declining a little bit, but still very good. Other than that, there's some big question marks, maybe some confidence that Hennessy could, continue to improve. I'm not really worried about the center position, but right tackle's been a problem. Left guard's kind of a problem. Some guys kind of fighting for that job, perhaps. They drafted Mayfield last year. Jalen Mayfield, maybe he takes that Wilkinson spot at the left guard position. That's very possible. But the Falcons kind of been on the decline offensive line-wise for quite a few years. Back when they were contenders, they had one of the better offensive lines, and now they're really going downhill. But maybe starting to slowly head in the right direction because there's some young pieces on here, minus Matthews. Matthews is a solid piece, but young pieces that can continue to grow here. So maybe they could start heading back in the right direction. 27, going to go with the Giants, and this is kind of where we enter tier 4. The Giants are tricky to rank because I love their tackle duo. Andrew Thomas really stepped up last year, can continue to grow, and I was a big Evan Neal fan. Not that he's going to be perfect year 1, going back to right tackle, but I'm a big fan. I love that tackle duo, and looking at that tackle duo, kind of when I was comparing to all the other teams, it's like, all right, the Giants should be way higher than 27, but this interior is kind of brutal. I do like Glowinski from the Colts. I know sometimes you take guys out of that Colts scheme and they're not the same. I still overall I think Glowinski's okay. But the interior as a whole could be pretty damn rough. Feliciano's constantly injured. We haven't really seen him at center yet either. Lemieux, that's kind of a job that's not really firm, but I think he'll get it. Obviously, it's my projection, but I think Danny Dimes can be protected off the edge. I think the interior pressure really going to be getting after him here because I do worry about this interior, but the tackles kind of hold it up. I love the tackle duo, kind of hold it up from being in that bottom tier 5 there. Next, the Jaguars. Cam Robinson got that big payday. He's kind of slowly improving, kind of still waiting for him to take that next step, show us what he can do. And then Juwan Taylor, the other right tackle, same thing. I liked him a lot out of Florida. He hasn't really showed us fully yet, what we thought, even near what we thought he can be. But those are their projected tackles. Walker Little could step in and play, possibly take that right tackle spot. It's possible. A little bit of a question at left guard and center with Shatley and Fortner, rookie center in there, obviously. Shatley's moved around a bit. Brandon Scherf is fantastic guard, just got to stay healthy. So it's a weird offensive line. Robinson could be a lot better than what people were projecting. Same with Taylor. Scherf, if he stays healthy, that's a really good piece. There's nothing super sexy about this offensive line. But Doug Peterson could have it playing better than maybe what was expected there. 25 is going to be the Dolphins. I didn't expect to rank the Dolphins this low either, just because the idea of probably not too far off, but the idea of the Dolphins, they got a lot better this offseason, right? And they got better. Maybe not as much once you sit down and look at the offensive line. Maybe not quite as much as we thought. I think the scheme change helps a little bit as well. They have a stud in Armstead. He's got to stay healthy. Eichenberg should be better at guard, which you thought maybe he could project as a right tackle, but it looks like he's going to play guard. There's still a little bit of a question mark. Connor Williams hasn't played center really, but should be all right there. Robert Hunt, I like. He's not a fantastic guard. I do like. And Austin Jackson's a bit of a question mark at right tackle. So the only thing that is firm, this is solid, is Armstead. I believe Williams and Hunt will be solid. It's kind of a prediction, but yeah, definitely better than where they were. Is it as much as we all kind of gave him credit for? We thought a lot better. Maybe not a lot. Maybe pump the brakes on that. But it is definitely better. And we'll see if the new offensive coaching staff could help it also be better as well. Put those together, it could be better than 25 then. Texans at 24. I think we're used to seeing the Texans at the very bottom, so they're kind of making their way up. It's kind of about health, durability here. Looking at a guy like Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Titus Howard, who I liked at tackle coming out of college, and they kind of had him at guard, and they moved him at right tackle at the end of last year, and he looked pretty solid. It's still a little bit of a question mark because it's a small sample size, but I'm pretty excited about Howard there. They had Kenyon Green, who's a solid left guard. So really the only question at center and right guard there for them, but Can was once pretty solid, so maybe they can get back out of him. But it's really about staying healthy, starting with Larry Tunsil. 23 is going to be the Tennessee Titans, which I think we're used to seeing the Titans kind of way higher ranked than this, but maybe they're declining a little bit here. I think it starts with Taylor Lewan, who was once kind of a borderline elite tackle, has really, some minor injuries popping up, maybe more than minor, and has kind of declined a little bit. So it's really on him. Which Taylor Lewan are we going to get this year? That could say a lot. Aaron Brewer, who they're kind of hyping up, projected to start at left guard. Still maybe a little bit of a question. Ben Jones, not a question. That's a very solid center. I like Nate Davis at right guard. And then Dylan Radins at right tackle, which he may have some competition with Petit Frere, the rookie from Ohio State. But Radins looked pretty good when stepping in at either tackle or guard last year. Yeah, it's if Taylor Lewan kind of goes back to where he was playing, I mean, they get a major boost. Because the only things that really aren't a question for me is center and right guard. Lewan should be solid enough, even though he's not playing his best ball. But yeah, so I mean, the Titans are a team, again, if Lewan goes back to playing his best, they can get a major boost there, better than 23, but it's a tricky one. And they're in tier 3, so we're kind of in the next tier of teams' offensive lines right now. Niners, yes, surprisingly maybe to some, the Niners down at 22, and it's because the interior is a little scary in a bad way for the 49ers. I really worry about the interior offensive line. The tackle duo is really good, mainly because Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in football, so that really weighs them up a bit. McGlinchey's a little inconsistent. He's got to stay healthy as well. But having Trent Williams is big. But Aaron Banks, I believe in him. I believe in his upside. There could be some growing pains. But yeah, the center and right guard spot, a little tricky there. You really worry about this interior offensive line, just not the same as what it used to be. No Laken Tomlinson, no Mack at center. So that's tough. I think the scheme helps it as well. I mean, on paper, it probably is definitely worse than 22. I mean, it's pretty much just Trent Williams and a somewhat solid McGlinchey, but I think the scheme and having maybe the best in football, Trent Williams, kind of brings it from maybe you'd rank it close to 30, 28, somewhere around there, but I think it kind of weighs it up a little bit. So it's a tough team to rank there, but yeah, you start to wonder, like, is this interior going to hold up for this team? Is that going to hurt them? And maybe, are they a borderline playoff team then because of that? So it's interesting. 21's going to be the Cardinals. DJ Humphries, who just got that major extension, is a solid left tackle. Rodney Hudson, if he's on the field, is a top-tier center. Other than that, I think some question marks. Pugh maybe declining a little bit, but solid enough. Hernandez, a little bit of a question mark, and Beachum has been a little bit inconsistent, so kind of held up by mainly two guys, sure thing guys there, and Humphries and Hudson there. Cardinals, it's just kind of like their team, like in general. Like the offensive line started off very well last year, and then Kyler Murray was kind of getting pressured like crazy, mainly from the interior, making him get outside the pocket earlier than he had to before. It was kind of the same story the last 2 years, really. So we're going to get it more consistent throughout the whole season this year. We will see. 20, the Bengals. It's weird seeing the Bengals at 20. There's a lot of teams like that. I got a lot of teams higher than you'd think, because we're so used to these teams like the Bengals kind of being ranked at not only the bottom, but maybe the very bottom there. So definitely heading in the right direction. I want to see it in action, though. Jonah Williams, stayed healthy last year, but I do want to see him step up a little bit. Like he could be a little bit better for a former first-round pick. Jackson Carman got a lot of upside there, but yeah, nothing guaranteed. With the left side, there's really nothing guaranteed. It's guys that will continue to get better, but can continue to get better. Ted Karras at center is a solid center pickup. He has been a backup going into years sometimes, so I'd say it's what the Bengals offense line. It really feels like it got a lot better, but I also want to say maybe not so fast. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It is better. Not get ahead of ourselves saying it's a lot better, because I want to see Karras. I'm confident with Karras, though. Alex Kappa is a big-time pickup. It's a really good right guard, and La'el Collins, if healthy, is a fantastic right tackle. So the right side, if healthy, is looking pretty damn good. The right side, including center, a little more questions on the left, but I think they coach him pretty well, believe it or not. I think on paper they just really had the worst offensive line these last couple of years. So I think the coaching is getting a little bit better, having those receivers, getting the ball out quick definitely helps as well, but kind of banking on some guys taking that next step in the chemistry coming together here for the Bengals. So it's good to see them making progress here, but Yeah, it's still a little bit up in the air. Will they actually perform how they should here, which is around this range, the 20 range here. Washington next, which they were a little bit better than expected last year, so tough to rank. It's like on paper, they're probably not this good, but based off last year, which we're not going off of, we're going off how I think they'll play this year, but last year they're probably better than 19. It is a little tricky because, yeah, Leno played better than expected last year. That's a good piece there. Cosme looked pretty solid, but didn't play every game, so maybe a little bit up in the air there. Norwell on the decline, but it's been a solid guard. Rollier's a solid center. Got to stay healthy, though. Trey Turner's been on the decline for sure. So there are some questions. Like, it's tough. On paper, they're probably not as good as 19, but where they played last year was probably better than 19, so I'm kind of holding out hope they kind of continue somewhere where they played last year, and you kind of get some progression from guys like Cosme and maybe some health, better durability. That's the key there for them. But they come in at 19. It is tough because sometimes Carson Wentz just doesn't want to get rid of the ball, and then last second when he's about to get hit because the lineman can't block forever, he decides to get rid of the ball while getting hit, and it ends up being a turnover. So sometimes the quarterback could make the offensive line look worse than they are as well, so I kind of do worry about that a little bit. But I do think Wentz fits their scheme very, very well. I've talked about that in the past, so maybe some good things to come here. 18, the Vikings, another weird one like the Bengals. We're kind of used to seeing the Vikings towards the bottom, but last year they really stepped up. They really stepped up last year, and you see a lot of young guys in there, and you start to think, all right, they're kind of heading in the right direction here. Still a little bit of work to do. Center is a major, major question, and it may not be Bradbury. It may be Reed, who they have at specifically backup left guard right now. I heard they could look to add a center, so center's the big question, but they kind of have a mini big three going right now with what we know Brian O'Neill is one of the best right tackles in football. Christian Darrisaw was getting everyone's just raving about Darrisaw right now. Looks like they got one with him. And Ezra Cleveland was very solid last year, so it looks like they have a very good young big three with those guys. Right guard could be Jesse Davis. I went with the projection that Ed Ingram, who they like, who is after the initial depth chart came out, they're kind of working with the ones there. Again, it could be Chris Reed in one of these guard spots. Probably not left guard because Ezra Cleveland's locked in. So I do like the three there. The tackle duo is looking pretty good. I like the left guard as well, so maybe some question marks at center and right guard, maybe heading in the right direction at the right guard at Ingram. So the Vikings are definitely fine. Finally, it's been some time, with that terrible offensive line, they're heading in the right direction. I think some good young additions over the last few years definitely helped them finally here. 17, going to go with the Broncos. Garrett Bowles, and it could be Anderson, but I went with Billy Turner, who's currently injured. But Billy Turner, to me on paper, is their best right tackle. So I'll go with Billy Turner there, especially with Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach now coming from the Packers. Garrett Bowles, I still say Garrett Bowles is a solid left tackle, but I still say it's a little bit up in the air on exactly which Bowles we're going to get. Because you look at 3 years ago, it was awful, but it was due to a lot of penalties. He kind of had to change how he was blocking because any type of grab he's getting called. And then 2 years ago, he was insanely good. And then last year was kind of not really in the middle, closer to the good side. But, what Bulls are we going to get here? I'm excited about Reisner, actually. I think Dalton Reisner really fits this new offense and been hearing he likes it. It looks like he really fits this new offensive scheme. So watch out for Reisner maybe. Cushenberry, a little inconsistent last year. Quinn Miners has got some upside. There are some question marks there with really the interior. Like, you like the idea of it. Reisner, Cushenberry, Miners. These are guys that are supposed to be good. But how good will they be? How fast will they get good? I'm confident with Reisner, actually. But so some questions, but I think with that new staff, new system, new quarterback, Russell Wilson, maybe it makes it a little bit better than what it looks like on paper there with the question marks. So I got them at 17, and that is another Tier 3 offensive lineman. Now we're on the Tier 2s, the Rams, which the Rams on paper probably don't look as good as 16, but that scheme got them playing very well no matter who comes in there. So that's the tricky part about them. I like Joseph Noteboom at left tackle. I know they're without Whitworth, but I like Noteboom there. David Edwards should be solid left guard. Brian Allen's a solid center. Right guard could be Shelton, could be Bruce, who they drafted from Wisconsin this year, the rookie. I'm going to go with him there. There's maybe a little bit of a question mark there, and Havenstein is a solid right tackle. So there's nothing really wow about this offensive line, but it's a pretty good unit in terms of the chemistry and how well it's coached. They're pretty sound. I guess the right guard's a little bit of a question there, but they come in at 16, and they are the first of the Tier 2 teams there. I guess the end of the Tier 2 teams there. 15, going to go with the Ravens. All about health when it comes to them. Ronnie Stanley could be one of the best of the best left tackle position, but kind of 2 years straight with the injuries there, pretty tough. And they added Morgan Moses at right tackle. He's not the best right tackle in the world, but it's a solid addition for them, and could help them. And then the guards look pretty solid. Nothing wow about it, but Zeitler played pretty damn good last year for them. I knew when they picked him up, I'm like, this might revive his career because he's such a good fit with the Baltimore Ravens with their power scheme. So he's very solid. And Linderbaum, I was thinking about, should I list him at center because he might miss a game or two, but they already have him listed as their starter, and they drafted him in the first round. You don't draft a center in the first round, not start him. So he's going to start most of the games for sure this year. I mean, sometimes you don't draft the center in the third round and not start him. It's just how the position is. So, Linderbaum, he was very good at Iowa. It's a little bit of a mystery, though. How will he fit this Ravens scheme? Because it's not at all the scheme he played in at Iowa, where his strengths came out. So some questions there once he gets back to health. And it's just health is the question. You talk about Stanley, a lot of these guys, too. We've seen Moses in the past, but it could be – it's a tough one to rank. 'Cause it could be if it stays with this group and Linderbaum plays as good in the kind of a scheme change – they could be better than 15, but there are some questions there, so it's a very tricky team. Lamar's speed, though, definitely helps. You don't have to block for as long. 14, going to go with the Packers. I think 14 is a pretty good rank, but I think we're used to seeing the Packers in the top tier of teams. They've, over the last maybe year or two, they've dropped down a little bit. It's really about the health with this team as well. David Bakhtiari, one of the very best elite tackles in football, so it helps to have him. And Elgin Jenkins can be elite, but he's got to stay healthy as well. And we were projecting him to play right tackle, but it's pretty interesting. I kind of changed my projection here because the Packers have which Jenkins is still out, but they have Royce Newman, who was a tackle in college, moved to guard by the Packers last year. They have him listed as a starting right tackle right now, and it could be just for now. And then when Elgin Jenkins comes back, then they move Newman, because right guard's an opening if Newman's not there and Jenkins is not there. And they could move Newman back to guard. But I'm thinking, why would they have Newman out of position if he's going to switch back? They would just have him at right guard, because they don't really they got Hanson there right now. That's not a starter to me. So I'm thinking they're going to play Newman at right tackle, and Elgin Jenkins is a stud of a guard. At tackle, he could be solid as well. He's a very good guard. So I think they're going to go that route now, actually. But really this group is really held up by Bakhtiari and Elgin Jenkins, who also have the durability concerns, but those are two potential elite guys there. But some question marks after that. I'm not really worried about Runyon, but how good will he be? Myers got injured last year. Thought they did pick him a little bit early too, so where's he going to be at? That was not this draft, the one before. Newman looks out at guard. How will he be at tackle? So some question marks there. I think they're well coached, and they have 2 stars on their team. So as a whole on paper, maybe not 14, but I think the 2 stars, and again, the way they're coached maybe bumps them up to that 14 spot here in Tier 2. A little bit of a surprise. I don't know if everyone else is ranking the Panthers this high, but I'm going to rank them this high, and we're used to them being at the bottom, especially last year and towards the very bottom. But I really like what they did with this group, and there is a little bit of a question here on the left side, and it's not a bad question. It is we might be able to flip Ikem Ekwonu and Brady Christensen, because Christensen has been a tackle, and he's listed ahead of Ekwonu at tackle right now. On the depth chart. And Ekwonu, we look at him as a prospect, a very good tackle, but this guy would be a Pro Bowl level guard. So we could flip those guys. Why I went this way, though, they still have Ekwonu listed as tackle. I know they have both, but they have Ekwonu listed as tackle, and they've been working Christensen in at guard at camp alongside Ekwonu more than vice versa. So it could be flipped once we get to week 1. I don't think it changes anything for me. If it's flipped at all, it really doesn't. But Ekwonu should be a very solid left tackle. Christensen's got some upside at guard. It should be easier for him. They added a stud center in Bradley Bozeman from the Ravens. Austin Corbett was fantastic for the Rams. I know the Rams makes guys look a little bit better, but he's got that experience. He's coming into what I think is a pretty good unit right next to one of the best right tackles in football in Taylor Moton. And that's kind of firm, like he's one of the better right tackles in football. So I think it's a pretty good offensive line. Now, will they put it together. Sometimes teams create this offensive line. It's like, wow, they're going to be a lot better, and sometimes it doesn't happen on the field. You got to see it in action. But I really like the way this offensive line is looking. So it is weird, probably, seeing the Panthers in Tier 2 ranked at 13 when we're used to them, based off last year, you might be talking 30s, 30, 31, around there, that range. So maybe 32. So I guess I'm believing in what they did here. So I can't wait to see it in action. Come this year, we'll see a little bit of it in preseason, of course, as well. So surprisingly, the Panthers are at 13. I did not expect myself to rank them that high, but once I sat down and compared, I liked it. 12, going to go with the Cowboys. So maybe they're a little bit lower than we're used to seeing, but they move on from Leo Collins. They don't have Connor Williams anymore. But really it's held up by Tyrone Smith and Zach Martin. Those are two studs out there. Of course, they have to stay healthy. They're held up by two studs, but that doesn't mean some of the other guys aren't okay or solid. Tyler Smith, who right now is listed as second string, but I think he'll take the job. They didn't take him in the first round to not start him at guard. If it was tackle, I understand maybe sitting him a little bit, maybe have him shed a little bit of weight, which some teams wanted him at tackle. But guard, I think you got to start him right away. And there could be some growing pains there as well. And center, Tyler Biadasz he's solid. He was a little inconsistent last year. And then Terrence Steele, same thing. Like when he first had to come in, he looked pretty solid. It's like, all right, they may not need Collins, but then I thought he kind of came back down to earth there, down to stretch. So he's a little inconsistent as well. So it's held up by two, but it's not like they have any weak spots. It's not like, I guess you could compare to the Packers because they have two guys that really hold them up, and the two guys in the Packers it's pretty even battle actually. But the Packers have some big questions in the other spots. The Cowboys, who pretty close, but I feel all right about the other spots here. There's no like, okay, that's bad, that's really bad, or that is going to be a problem. There could be some problems here and there, but that's why the Cowboys are at 12. 11, another weird one. Weird seeing the Jets here all the way right outside the top 10 because the Jets for a while were at the bottom of the league, high 20s, 30s. Until last year, I thought maybe early in the year it was kind of close to down there, maybe mid-20s, and then they kind of creeped up and then maybe finished the year around, I'm just ballparking, around the 18, 19, 20 range. Based off last year. Then going into this year, some of the guys they had, George Fant, it looked like he was improving last year, so he continued to improve. Elijah Vera Tucker, who was great last year, and he's a second-year guy, and he was originally a tackle, too, at USC. He's only going to get a better. He's got a ton of upside. Connor McGovern was a solid center, so you kind of keep that group together. And then you add Laken Tomlinson, who's a very, very good guard, a big reason why the Niners' offensive line took a hit. And he fits the scheme. We got some familiar coaches there from the Niners tree. Fantastic. And then you had Dwayne Brown actually just yesterday, which the tricky part is Dwayne Brown has a total of 4 snaps at right tackle in his career, but he's a veteran, smart guy. And it's possible that we could have that flipped. It could be Fant at right tackle and Brown at left because they've actually, based on career snaps, that would actually make more sense. But they keep raving about Fant at left tackle, and he played very well there. So then they'll plug in Brown at right tackle, which technically you'd rather have Becton healthy, obviously, and improving with this young group. But today, they get better, actually, with Dwayne Brown starting there. So this looks like a pretty good group for the Jets. I guess a little bit of a question of the tackles because Fant, had one really good year. How will Brown be at right tackle? But it looks pretty good across the board. Really like what they've done and where they could get to with this offensive line. It can continue to grow. So some promise for the New York Jets there into the top 10. And we're still in Tier 2. I'm going to go with the Bills. The Bills were interesting last year because they started off pretty bad, actually, offensive line. Josh Allen was pressured a ton. And then down the stretch, into the playoffs, it was ridiculous. They weren't allowing any pressure on Josh Allen. So maybe a little bit of a question, which one are we going to get? How consistent will it be? But then they're heading in the right direction. They get better with adding a guy like Roger Saffold, who maybe is declining a little bit because he's up there in age, but he's still a very solid left guard. And Deion Dawkins is stud left tackle. I love what I saw from Spencer Brown last year, so he should be solid at right tackle. It's nothing, I guess, confirmed he'll be this great. But center, Mitch Morse, good veteran center. Right guard, maybe a little bit of a battle. I just keep hearing really good things about Ryan Bates. And they have Cody Ford as well. But I think they'll go Bates, it sounds like. So, there's really no weak spot at all on this offensive line, and you kind of got some bright spots in there with the chemistry, the veterans, and Deion Dawkins, Saffold, guys like that. And just kind of remembering where they kind of finished off They were playing at a very high level as well. So they cracked the top 10. On to number 9, going to go with the Chargers. The Chargers have a very big weak spot at right tackle, and it very well could be Storm Norton. Pipkins was kind of an upside guy coming out, so I'm thinking maybe he hits that a little bit and wins the job. Right now, they kind of got 1A, 1B listed as a starter there between him and Norton. They could add a right tackle still, too. But so they have that major weak spot. So how they top 10, the rest of the group is pretty damn good. That's how. Rashawn Slater is a stud left tackle. Matt Filer really picked it up once he got added to this group here. Corey Linsley is probably the best center in football. And I love me some Zion Johnson. That was a great pick. He's a pro-ready guard. So I think he'll be very solid for them right away. So that left tackle to right guard is really, really good. Like if they had a solid right tackle, this could be number 1. It could be towards the top there, tier 1 for sure. So like this group. Hopefully that right tackle could protect Herbert. Maybe they got better than we think, better than it looks on paper. But I like where the Chargers are heading overall. Number 8, I'm going to go with the Saints. Yeah, a little different when Armstead out and Penning in. Penning listed as a backup behind Hurst right now, but you drafted him in the first round. You traded for an extra first-round pick, and Penning, I don't see why he wouldn't be pro-ready. Like he should be ready to step in. I mean, he could have some growing pains in terms of pass protection, not so much run blocking. It's because he's a rookie, but I expect him to start. Got to cut it out with the fighting though. His own teammates, but then mainly the penalties, because we've seen it pop up. We've seen moments pop up that didn't get called on tape that would get called in the NFL. So you got to clear that up a little bit, but I like the nastiness for sure. Just cool it a little bit, but you got Penning at left tackle, which instead of Armstead, who was hurt last year anyways, but Armstead, Penning, obviously they take a little step down. But then Andrus Peat needs to stay healthy. McCoy's Pete's a solid left guard. McCoy's a solid center. Ruiz could step up a little bit, but some upside there. And then Ryan Ramczyk, who's one of the very best right tackles in football. So I know they have a standout guy in Ramczyk, which is great to have that. But at the same time, it does kind of feel balanced. There's really no weak spot. I think they coach these guys, which Sean Payton's gone, but he isn't, the actual offensive line coach. But could that affect the offense in general? But I think it's a balanced, well-coached group here that should be a top 8 offensive line. Maybe not. We were kind of getting used to it being a top 3, top 5. Maybe not quite that, but not too far off. 7, I'm going to go with the Colts. And we were kind of used to the Colts maybe being number 1 or top 3 for a bit. So maybe same thing, kind of a little bit of a step down, but not too much here. Projecting Matt Pryor at left tackle. It could be Bernard Ryman, which was a great pick, rookie from Central Michigan. I still think he's a little raw, so it could be Pryor. And they have a star guard in Quentin Nelson. They have a very good center, Ryan Kelly. And then Danny Pinter, when he had to play for them, was pretty solid last year. But yeah, I guess that's the questions. Left tackle and right guard, but they have a stud right tackle and Braden Smith. So they kind of got a big 3 here. And the Colts scheme is just so good for these offensive linemen. They make guys play way better than what they're supposed to be. So that kind of look at Pryor and Pinter, or whether it's Ryman, whoever it may be, and say, and they could they still sign Fisher too? It's a possibility. But I think the scheme, the coaching, all of that makes some of those spots that look like questions maybe not be as much of a question, but they do have a big 3 in there, which helps them be inside the top 8. But we're still in tier 2. Number 6 going to be the Buccaneers, who would probably be in contention for number 1 if it wasn't for some injuries there, but obviously, or some losses. But very solid tackle doing Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs arguably the best right tackle in football. Donovan Smith has been very solid since Brady's come in. Center right now looks like Robert Hainsey, who played a bit of everything for Notre Dame a couple years ago, tackle, guard, center. So maybe some upside there, but it's not Ryan Jensen, so that's why they took the hit. Shaq Mason should be a very good guard for them, experience playing for Tom Brady. So they kind of have a big 3 with their tackles, and then Shaq Mason. The questions is center and left guard could be Stinney, who is listed as their left guard right now. But I'm going to go with the rookie Godecki there, which they like. So I'm going to go with him there. And, Brady in this scheme always has guys player and better expected, but they kind of have that big 3. But, yeah, they could have been, top tier if, they lost some guys. And then Jensen getting hurt, really, even just with that, if he was still there, they could have a big boost. Top 5. Going to go with the Patriots, number 5, still in tier 2 here. Tackle duo solid. It's a tricky one because tackle duo can be solid. Trent Brown definitely has to stay healthy, and Wynn could pick it up a little bit there. So that's the tricky part of ranking them. But I like the interior a lot. Cole Strange was definitely a reach of a pick, but he's going to be good. Like, I think he's going to be very solid with the Patriots, even right out the gate. So you just kind of know he is, even though even if he's great, it's still going to feel like a reach of a pick. But again, he could be very good, and I think he will be. So, and then center, David Andrews, one of the better centers in football, and Michael Onwenu has been fantastic, who also can play guard. So that kind of made me feel a little bit better. I'm like, do I kind of push them down to where it looks like on paper, because tackle is somewhat of a question, but when you can fill in at tackle and play very, very well, and I really won't be worried about the next man up from the interior then either. So it's a well-coached group too. I know the scheme changed a little bit though when McDaniel's out, so it's a tough one to rank. Interesting group, but I got him at 5. I got him at 5 right now. We're on to tier 1, and the Detroit Lions are in the top tier here, and we kind of knew they may be heading in that direction after last year, after they kind of put this group together. There's no weakness in this offensive line. They got a big-time 3 in Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, and Penei Sewell. That tackle duo is fantastic, one of the best in football. And then Jonah Jackson and Big V are very solid as well. Big V was very good with the Eagles. Lions get him, put him at tackle. Even when I knew when they were putting him at tackle, I'm like, I don't think that's good. He's not a tackle, and it wasn't good. Moving back to guard, and he fits right in there. I mean, he can actually continue to play better as well, and Jonah Jackson continue to play better. He's very young, so it's a really good group across the board. I will say Decker was a little off last year. I think penalties played a part. Kind of got back to normal down the stretch, so that's something I'm looking for. Sewell's a stud. He's going to continue to get better, but it's a really good group here for Detroit Lions. Did a really good job putting this together. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Browns at 3. Pretty good tackle duo. I thought Wills was better his rookie year than last year, so that's something to keep an eye on, which Wills we're going to get. I'm confident with him. He's still kind of a prospect, very good prospect, a lot of upside. And Conklin's very good right tackle. He's just got to stay healthy, so that could be a very good tackle duo. But they have an insane guard duo there, Batonio and Wyatt Teller. So that really boosts this group up. Center, a little bit of a question. It's going to Nick Harris or Ethan Posich, one of the two there. It sounds like right now Harris, even though a few weeks ago I probably would have predicted Posich. But solid tackle duo, elite guard duo, and they've just been playing at a very high level, so that helps as well. I got the Chiefs at 2, where the Chiefs got to last year. This offensive line, ridiculous. A ridiculous offense. The only question is right tackle, even though Wiley's been on the Chiefs for some time. He's been playing pretty well, and they have Lucas Nang, who's solid. He just has the injury concern, so they got 2 options there. That's kind of the weak spot. Is it really that weak, though? No, not at all. Orlando Brown was a stud, especially down the stretch last year. I thought he was fantastic for the Chiefs. I think he's only going to get better at that left tackle spot as well. The guard duo, the interior trio was just ridiculous last year. Joe Thuney, one of the best in football. Creed Humphrey looked like the best center in football last year. Only going to get better. And then Trey Smith, only going to get better, was fantastic, a very good run blocker. That interior looks really, really good, and when you have a stud like Orlando Brown, everyone's different on Orlando Brown. I think this guy could be a star. I think he's not too far off with that, so everyone's a lot different, it seems like, with Orlando Brown, but this is a really good group, and they played very well. I mean, Mahomes had all day to do his thing, especially down the stretch last year when they really got going, because the team started off a little slow, which was weird, but love this group, and that was their first year kind of playing. I mean, how many of these guys were on that offensive line here? Wiley, that was it, or did he even start? I think they had Remmers in that spot. So, I mean, just think about the lack of chemistry last year on top of it. I like that Chiefs offensive line. Got to go with the Eagles at 1. I think it's the most balanced group, or one of the most balanced group, on top of having an insane tackle duo with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. Just very good there. It's about staying healthy with Lane Johnson, which he did last year. And then Dickerson's got a lot of upside at that guard spot going into this year, and then having one of the better centers in football in Jason Kelsey. And they have Cam Jurgens kind of waiting in the background there, who could be pretty solid. And Sumalo's kind of like the weaker spot, even though it's not a weak spot of this group, just because it's so good. But even kind of going even further, I think a lot of it to me is how they actually play as a unit on the field, how well they are coached. We kind of mentioned that throughout this video. And those 2 things, Eagles to me are top end. On top of having an elite tackle duo, it's just a good group overall with some upside mixed in there. They may be the best of the best when it comes to chemistry, how they work together, but that coaching group as well, they develop them and get them prepared every Sunday. So that is actually a big reason I went with them number 1. But the more I was talking about the Chiefs, I'm like, man, the Chiefs really could. I mean, really could be 1 because the chemistry wasn't there right away last year. It's kind of just getting going, so that's pretty interesting as well. But those are the 32 offensive line. This is a lot of work to do this one, but I really enjoyed making it. It was a lot of fun. Even kind of learned things myself here when comparing these teams, these offensive lines. So let me know your rankings, your thoughts in the comments. We're always talking with you guys on Twitter. If you super follow us, you get a bunch of bonus content as well. Like, subscribe to notifications on here on the channel because we got full NFL coverage. That is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.